The only way you'll make it as a screenwriter is if you apply this one simple principle to everything you do, not just in writing, but in life. When I started thinking this way, I went from nearly giving up on screenwriting altogether to being confident enough to write every single day. If you implement everything in this video, you'll never question your abilities to make it as a screenwriter again. I'll even throw in a little hack at the end that will maximize your creativity. What if I told you that the low odds of succeeding as a screenwriter actually increase your chance of becoming one? Wait, what? All you need to do is avoid the 3 sins of screenwriting. Pretend you're a food critic. You're trying a bunch of different restaurants to see who makes the best food. At the first restaurant you go to, it just flat out tastes bad. There's no substance or heart in any of it. They might as well have just tossed it in the microwave and then not even let it sit in there for long enough. These are screenplays where there's no better way to describe it. They're just bad. The story feels contrived, the characters are inauthentic, and the dialogue isn't even remotely convincing. This is honestly most screenplays. If you put enough time and effort into just writing a compelling story, I genuinely believe that will put you ahead of at least 50% of aspiring screenwriters. This next one is actually extremely surprising, but when I saw that it exists, it actually made me feel like there was no possible way that I could fail in this industry. And it's the #1 thing I've seen professional scriptwriters complain about multiple times. You go to your next restaurant. All you want is a cheeseburger. There's a pretty universal idea of what a basic cheeseburger should look like. The waiter comes out with your food, and if you're a normal human being, you're expecting 2 buns with a patty and cheese inside. But when he brings it, it looks nothing like this. Instead, he brings you what I call a reverse cheeseburger. You know, there's 2 patties on the outside and a bun on the inside. Oh, and don't forget about the cheese, all right? The cheese, it's not even on the burger, all right? He brings it to you on a separate plate. This completely goes against any conventional wisdom that any of us have when it comes to a cheeseburger as a society. I know that sounds ridiculous, and hopefully it would never happen, although I am a little curious to see how it would taste. You would be blown away by the amount of people that submit feature-length screenplays that aren't even formatted properly. Just basic mistakes that you wouldn't imagine someone could even make by accident. Like, they don't have any page numbers. They put dialogue in the action text, not using caps when introducing a new character, not even using courier font. And I know, none of these sound quite as bad as bringing a reverse cheeseburger. I swear to God, I'm gonna go try that now. There are basic rules that every screenwriter should just know. Like, when you're a Hollywood script reader, if you're getting hundreds, even thousands of scripts, and the majority of them aren't even formatted properly, they're gonna be so frustrated by the lack of attention to such simple things, they might not even be able to get invested into your story. But if you send them a script that is formatted perfectly, they're gonna sigh with relief and think, finally, someone who actually knows what they're doing. All right, now this is the biggest one. If you can adapt what I'm about to share here, you will never consider giving up on screenwriting again. The ironic thing is, it has nothing to do with your screenplay. How does it make you feel when you read an article like this? Within 10 seconds of reading it, years of aspirations towards selling your own screenplay go out the window. And trust me, I've been there, and so have you. And you know what that means? So has every other screenwriter out there. Most people who see something like this, they're gonna give up. If you can maintain the resilience to keep working at it in spite of little jabs to your goals, that's enough on its own to put you ahead of everyone else. But how do you do this? How do you stay persistent in a world that has such low odds? I read a story about an author who couldn't sell his first book. He got so many rejection letters that he hung them on a nail in his wall. At one point, the amount of rejection letters became so heavy that it fell off the wall, and he just gave up on his dreams of becoming a writer and threw his book into the garbage. Do you know who this author was? Stephen King. I don't think I need to tell you what happens after that, but his advice was this: go get a bigger nail. You keep refining your script and you keep getting rejected again and again and again. You keep writing, getting feedback on your work until it's good enough for someone to buy it. If you even want a chance in this business, or honestly, in any facet of your life, it all comes down to the way you define failure. Whenever you're feeling discouraged or not sure what to do, act as though it were impossible to fail. This is a quote I had to hear multiple times before I actually understood what it meant, but once I did, it completely changed the way I looked at failure. Rather than thinking of every obstacle along the way as a complete failure, look at them like bosses in a video game. The first time you face it head on, you're probably gonna lose, and the second time, and the third time, but you keep fighting him. You eventually learn all his weak points and you know what moves he's gonna make before he even makes them. Finally, you defeat him. Now, not only does your character grow, but the new skills you've acquired from defeating this boss makes it even easier to defeat the next one. You're more resilient moving forward and more likely to just beat the entire game. There's a lot of definitions of failure, but that like big bad failure at the end of the road, the failure that means you were never able to achieve what you set out to achieve, that only happens when you give up completely. When it just gets so hard that your fear of not achieving your goal becomes greater than your desire to do so. Wouldn't you like to know how you can face these obstacles without being afraid of them? What I'm about to tell you will allow you to be prepared for obstacles before they even happen. Rather than getting demotivated every time it just gets a little hard, you'll be fully prepared to deal with it and know exactly what you need to do. I took a stock trading course a while back, and one of the biggest things they told me to be prepared for was taking losses. That as good of a trader as someone might be, all of them are going to have a loser at some point. They walked me through some of the best strategies to implement for dealing with these losses. Walking away from the computer screen, journaling about it rather than just acting out my emotions and over trading, or even just doing something as simple as breathing exercises for like 5 minutes. So think of every obstacle you can possibly think of when it comes to being a screenwriter. And this can mean so many things, dude, like rejection, criticism, writing a new draft, writer's block, networking, any difficulties that might cause your motivation to wane, write it down. And then write down exactly what you'll do when these problems come up. Maybe the first problem you write down is criticism. So you purchase feedback on a script and they rip your new baby to shreds. The solution is that rather than feeling discouraged and like you'll never make it, you use their feedback as a learning lesson to improve your work moving forward. Hopefully you're feeling very motivated from all this. You know, you're starting to get that determination back, like you actually have a chance to make it as a screenwriter, only you're not sure where to start. You know, imagine you had so many ideas for movies to write that you didn't even know what to do with them. This is something I actually learned about Aerosmith, and hopefully you're kosher enough to know about their existence, but if not, you know, they're the ones who wrote Dream On, Sweet Emotion, I Don't Want to Miss a Thing. I really hope you know at least one of those. If not, we're going to have a problem. Anyways, they were in a rough spot at one point. They had all this pressure to make a good return album, and they were stuck in a creative rut, just struggling to come up with anything new. They were afraid of failure and judgment, like we are, both from their fans and themselves. So they needed a new approach to making songs to get rid of this fear of failure, this fear of judgment. Otherwise, their entire songwriting careers would be on the line. They decided to try something they've never tried for one of their songwriting sessions. Instead of trying to come up with perfect songs from the start, they began sharing intentionally bad song ideas with each other. You know, they'd show up to rehearsal and just deliberately play the worst thing they could think of. But every now and then, one of them would share something that would make all the other band members go, wait, I actually like that. And they'd make it into a song. And that's how they made Do Looks Like a Lady. And okay, if you don't know that one, I can't help you. So let yourself have fun with deliberately bad ideas, you know, embrace imperfection. So for screenwriting, write down the first 10 ideas you have, no matter what, whether they seem stupid, bad, or whatever, your only goal is to write them down. And if you struggle with this, write 20 ideas. Oh, but if I can't write 10 ideas, how am I supposed to write 20? By switching your goal to 20, it gives your brain a lot more tolerance to write out bad ideas. You have to exercise the muscle of not caring and just sort of free-flowing and putting down on paper anything that comes to mind without any judgment. Then you pick out 1 or 2 ideas from that list and do this every day until you have one you actually want to work on. Hopefully you have everything you need to keep going as a screenwriter, only you're still in a job you don't like and it's unfortunately limiting your time to spend on writing. You might even be thinking about quitting. Well, what if I told you that pursuing a career in screenwriting is actually better when you're starting out if you still have a 9-to-5 job? If you want to understand what I mean by this, check out this video of mine here. Until then, I'll see you in the next one.